Who would tell us of the things of old, of the things of old and of the things that have been? Of Prince Ivan, of Anna the Fair, of Baba Yaga, of that Baba Yaga, and of the legless knight and the blind knight. In a certain kingdom and a certain land, it matters not where, lived a Tsar and his Tsaritsa. They had a son called Ivan Tsarevich, and the son had an attendant who was called Katoma Dyadka of the Oaken Cap. When the Tsar and Tsaritsa had reached a great age, both of them became ill, and they felt that they would never become hale again. So they summoned Tsarevich Ivan and said to him, "When we die, always follow Katoma's advice and do well by him, then you will live happily. But if you do not, you will falter and fail like a fly." The next day, the Tsar and Tsaritsa died. Tsarevich Ivan buried his parents, heeded their advice, and always took counsel with Katoma before undertaking any enterprise. When he grew older, Tsarevich Ivan said to Katoma, "Katoma Oaken Cap, it is so melancholy living by oneself. I want to marry." Katoma replied, "Tsarevich, you're of the age at which you ought to be seeking a bride. Go into the great hall, where you will see pictures of all the Tsarévna in the world. Gaze upon them carefully, and select for yourself a bride, one who pleases you, and you shall marry her." Ivan Tsarevich went into the great hall, looked at the pictures, and he was most delighted with Anna the Fair, fairer than any princess in the world. But under her portrait was a legend. He who can set her a riddle she cannot solve is to marry her. Anyone whose riddle she solves dies. Ivan read the legend and sadly told Katoma, "I was in the great hall, and I selected as my bride Anna the Fair, but I do not know whether I can woo her." "Yes, Tsarevich, if you had to go there by yourself, you would fail and die. Take me. Do what I say, and all will be well." Then Tsarevich Ivan pledged Katoma Oaken Cap his word of honor that he would obey him in joy and in sorrow. So they set out on the way to seek Anna the Fair, Tsarévna, traversing many lands. Tsarevich Ivan said, "We have been so long on the journey and are at last approaching the realms of Anna the Fair, and still we have not thought of any riddles for her." "Time enough yet," Katoma replied. So they rode on, and Katoma saw a purse lying on the road and said, "Tsarevich Ivan, there is your riddle for the Tsarévna. Give her this riddle to solve. Good lies on the road. We took the good with good and set it down to our good. That she will never solve in all her long life. For every riddle she has solved at once, for she had only to look in her magical book, and she would have cut off your head. This one she will not solve." At last the Tsarevich and Katoma came to a lofty castle where the fair Tsarévna lived. She was standing on her balcony and sent her messengers to meet them, to know whence they came and what was their will. Tsarevich Ivan answered, "I have come from my distant realm in order to woo Anna Tsarévna the Fair." This she was told, and she bade that Tsarevich be introduced into her castle. He was to set her a riddle in front of all her counselors and her princes and boyars. "For I have sworn," said she, "to marry him who sets me a riddle I cannot solve. But if I guess it, then he must die." The fair Tsarévna listened to the riddle. Good lies on the road. We took the good with good and set it down to our good. Anna the Fair took her conjuring book and searched it through for the riddle, looked the whole book through in vain. So the princes and boyars decided that she must marry the Tsarevich. But she was very gloomy over it, yet still had to make ready. But in her heart of hearts, she kept thinking, how could I postpone the date and get rid of my bridegroom? So she decided to tire him out through severe tasks. One day, she called Ivan Tsarevich to her and said, "Dear Ivan Tsarevich, my chosen mate, we must get ready for the marriage. Do me a small service. In my realm there stands in a certain village a great iron column. Bring it to the great kitchen and split it up into little logs, as if it were firewood for the cook." This seemed a silly, pointless task, unworthy of a Tsarevich. So Ivan called Katoma and told him what to do, to hew the iron column into small logs as fuel for the cook. Katoma at once went, took the pillar in his two hands, brought it into the kitchen and split it up. But he kept 4 iron shafts and put them in his pocket, for he thought, later I may find a use for these. The next day the Tsarévna said, "Dear Tsarevich, my chosen husband, tomorrow we shall marry. I shall go in a carriage to church, and you will have a fine prancing steed given you. You must get him ready yourself." "I must get the horse ready." "Oh, my servant can do that." So Tsarevich Ivan called Katoma and said, "Come into the stable and command the grooms to bring the horse out, ride it, and tomorrow I shall go to church on it." But Katoma could see the guile in the Tsarévna's heart and instantly went into the stable and ordered the grooms to bring the horse out. 12 grooms opened the 12 locks, undid 12 doors, and led the magical horse out by 12 chains. Katoma went up to him, and as soon as ever he had swung himself onto the horse's back, the steed rose high into the air, higher than the treetops in the forest, lower than the clouds in the heavens. But Katoma had a firm seat, and with one hand he held the mane, and with the other he fetched an iron rod from his pocket and struck the palfrey between the ears. One sheet broke, then he took a second and a third, and after the third broke, he was taking the fourth. The horse was so tired that he could resist no more, but spoke in human voice, "Father Katoma, leave me some life, and I will come to earth and do whatever you will. I will do it." "Listen then, wretched animal," Katoma answered. "Tomorrow Tsarevich Ivan will ride you to his wedding. Listen, when the servants take you into the broad courtyard and he comes up to you and lays his hands on you, stand still, do not prick your ear. When he mounts, kneel down with your hooves on the ground and step under him with a heavy tread as if you were bearing a burdensome load." So the horse sank half dead onto the earth. Katoma, seated by the tail, hailed the grooms and said, "Oh, you there, grooms, coachman, take this carrion into the stable." The next day, at the hour of church, the Tsarevich was given the magical horse. From all parts of the country, the people had assembled in countless multitudes to see the bride and the bridegroom, leave the white stone palace. And the Tsarévna went into the carriage and waited to see Ivan's bones scattered on the open fields. Tsarevich Ivan went up to the horse, laid his hand upon its back, his foot in the stirrup, and the magical horse stood there as if he were made of stone and never pricked an ear. The Tsarevich mounted, and the horse bowed deep into the earth, and he stood with an heavy, even tread, while the sweat ran down his back in streams, as if carrying a great burden. "What a hero he is! What enormous strength!" all the people said of Ivan Tsarevich. So the bride and bridegroom were betrothed and went hand in hand into the church. The Tsarévna still wanted to test her husband's strength and squeezed his hand, but she squeezed so hard that he could not stand it, and his blood mounted in his head, and his eyes seemed to bulge from their sockets. "Oh, that's the manner of hero you are," she thought. Your man Katoma Oakencap has deceived me, but I shall soon get even." Anna Tsarévna the Fair lived with her God-sent husband as a good wife should, and always listened to his words. But she was ever thinking of how she might destroy Katoma. If she knew that, she would very easily dispose of the Tsarevich. But however many slanders she might think of to tell him, Tsarevich Ivan never believed her, but held fast to Katoma. 1 year later, he said to his wife, "Dear wife, beautiful Tsarévna, I should like to go home with you." "Yes, we will go together. I have long wished to see your kingdom." So they set out, and Katoma sat behind the coachman. And as they drove out, Tsarevich Ivan dozed off. Then Anna the Fair suddenly roused him from his sleep and complained, "Listen, Ivan Tsarevich, you are always asleep and you notice nothing. Katoma will not obey me, but purposely takes the horses over the cobbles and off into the ditches as if he wanted to destroy us. I spoke to him very gently, but he only laughs at me. I will not go on living if you do not punish him." Angry, Tsarevich Ivan said, "Do what you will." So Anna at once made her servants cut off Katoma's legs and put him upon the top of a tall tree stump beside the road. And as to her husband, Tsarevich Ivan, she tied him with a rope and led him behind the carriage as she returned to her homelands. Tsarevich Ivan wept bitter tears and knew he had made a mistake, but it could not be cured. When Anna the Fair had again reached her kingdom, the Tsarevich had been given the task of minding the cows. Every morning he drove them into the open field, and every evening drove them back into the royal courtyard, and the Tsarévna sat on the balcony and saw that none of the cows was missing. And she made Tsarevich Ivan count the cows and stable them all, and to give the last one a kiss under its tail. The cow knew what was expected of her, and each evening remained standing at the door and lifted her tail for the kiss. But we have not forgotten the fate of Katoma Oakencap. Legless Katoma sat upon the tree stump where he had been placed, unable to move. He had neither meat nor drink. But in the dark forest nearby, there lived a knight who was blind. This blind knight relied upon his keen senses to follow animals by their scent, and he could run swifter than any animal, and he was able to run them down, kill them, and thus feed himself. One day the blind knight was pursuing a fox who ran towards the tree stump where Katoma sat, and the blind knight's forehead struck the tree stump, knocking it to the ground. And Katoma asked, "Who are you?" "I am the blind knight, and for 3 years I have lived in the wood feeding myself in this manner. Otherwise I should have died of hunger." "Were you blind since birth?" "No, Anna the Fair put my eyes out." "Brother," said Katoma, "she cut off my legs." So the two knights decided they would live together and each aid the other. The blind man said to Katoma, "Sit on my back and show me the way. I will serve you with my feet, you will serve me with your eyes." And thus the blind man lifted Katoma onto his back, and the legless man cried out, "Left, right, straight on." For a long time they lived in the wood and used to catch rabbits and foxes and bears for their food. One day Katoma suggested, "Let us go into town." There they found a rich merchant and his daughter. The daughter was indescribably kind to the poor men and cripples, giving them alms with her own hands. And she came to live with the two crippled knights in their izba, in their house, and they honored her and loved her as if she were their own sister. But one day, Baba Yaga with the bony legs came into the hut and sucked the blood of the fair maiden's breast. And whenever the two knights went away on chase, Baba Yaga came back, so that very soon the merchant's fair daughter became thin and feeble. But the blind man did not notice. Only Katoma noticed that something had gone wrong, so he told his companion, and both asked their sister what was the cause. Baba Yaga had forbidden her to tell them anything about it. She was therefore much too frightened for a long time to tell them what was her trouble. But at last they persuaded her, and she told them, every time when you go out on the chase, an ancient hag comes into the hut. She has an evil face and long gray hairs. She hangs her head down over me and sucks my white breast. Ah, said the blind man, that is the Baba Yaga. Wait a little bit. We must deal with her in her own fashion. Tomorrow we shall not go hunting. We shall try to catch her in the house and capture her. The next morning they fell upon her, Legless night falling upon the foul witch like a mountain of iron, seizing Baba Yaga by her gray tresses and crying out, Ho, Katoma, come hold the evil hag. We must build a big faggot heap and burn the old hag and scatter her ashes to the four winds. Baba Yaga besought them, Father, Doveling, forgive me. Whatever you will, I will do. Very well, ancient witch, said the knights. Show us the wells with the waters of life and death. If you will only not lay me low, I will show you. Then Katoma mounted the blind man's back, and he took Baba Yaga by her hair. So they fared into the deepest part of the slumberous forest, and at first she sought to deceive the crippled knights. But she still prayed for mercy as before, and swore a great oath she would not deceive any more. Really and truly, I will show you the right water. At last they came to the stream with the waters of life, so the blind man washed his eyes and could see again, and he put the cripple in the water, and his legs grew upon him. Then they were both very glad and said, Now we're healthy. We will again talk of our own rights, but we must first settle our account with Baba Yaga. If we now forgive her, we shall get no good thereby, for she will strive ever against us all her life. So they took her to a fiery brook and threw her in it, and she was burned to death. Katoma then married the merchant's daughter, and all three went back to the kingdom of Anna Tsarévna the Fair to free Tsarevich Ivan. They went into the capital, and there they met the cowherd. Stay, herd, said Katoma. Whither are you driving the cattle? Into the queen's courtyard. The Tsarévna counts them every day to see whether all the cows have come home, and then bids me kiss beneath the last cow's tail. Herd, put on my clothes. I will put on yours, and will drive the cows home. No, brother, that will never do. Should the Tsarévna notice, I shall suffer. Fear nothing. Nothing will happen. You will come by no harm. Katoma is your surety. Ivan sighed, Oh, good man, if only he were here, I should not be herding cows. Then Katoma showed himself who he was, and the Tsarevich embraced him and wept bitter tears at their reunion. So they changed clothes, and Katoma drove the cows into the royal courtyard. Anna Tsarévna came out to her balcony and counted the cattle. Then she commanded to take them all into the stable. All the cows went into the stable. Only the last stayed behind and raised her tail. Katoma sprang up at her and cried out, Wretched animal, why are you stopping here? So he gripped and snatched the tail so mightily that the entire skin of the cow remained in his hand. When Anna Tsarévna saw this, she cried out aloud, "What is that wretched herdsman doing? Lay hold of him and bring him to me." So the attendants laid hold of Katoma and dragged him into the castle. Katoma suffered it without resistance and relied on his strength. He was taken up to the Tsarévna, who looked at him and said, "Who are you?" "I'm Katoma, whose legs you once cut off and then set on a tree stump." Then the Tsarévna thought, "If he can get his legs back, I can do no more against him." And she asked for forgiveness from him and the Tsarevich. She repented of her sins and swore an oath that she would ever love Ivan Tsarevich and obey him in all things. Ivan forgave her, and forthwith they lived in peace and union. The knight who was once blind stayed with them, but Katoma, he went away with his newfound wife, the daughter of the rich merchant, and abode in his house. It was at the feast I heard this tale. There it was, I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.